So I was checking PalNet this morning, and I came across this article in my feed from Taskmaster 4450 about tokenization allowing us to buy into entities. And it looks like his point is that with the advent of Steam engine and being able to create tokens very quickly and easily and cheaply, then that gives everybody the ability to, well, like he says, buy into entities. And that's true. He goes on to, like in this paragraph, he talks about those with big money who are considered accredited investors are able to get into opportunities sooner. The system is geared for them, believing they are the only ones smart enough to understand risk. In other words, the rest of us lack the ability to size up the prospects of a deal to accurately assess whether we should put our money into it or not. And thankfully, the government, the SEC, is there to protect us. They are there to help after all. And he's absolutely right about this. So there is, the hurdle of becoming an accredited investor. And if I'm, it's off the top of my head, but if I remember right, that means you have to have income of at least $250,000 for the last 2 years, or you have to have $1 million of net worth outside of your personal residence. I believe those are the two criteria. So there's 3 different categories with the SEC as far as investor goes. There's accredited, there's sophisticated, and then there's everybody else. And there's some other random things like if you're an insurance company, things like that. But for regular people, those are the 3 basic categories. So an accredited investor means that you have money. A sophisticated investor means that you understand markets and investments and different types of deals and things. And everybody else is, well, everybody else. So the technology, Taskmaster is absolutely right that the technology of Steem engine now allows for the tokenization of securities like we have now. And really, when you think about it, a stock certificate is actually an old-fashioned token. It's a non-fungible token. So, the stocks were issued by a company, just like tokens are issued by whoever creates a token. And they have certain voting rights. They have certain potential inflation. So in the stock world, it's called dilution. So a company comes to market, they have 1 million shares, they sell them out to investors to raise money, and then it's like, oh, we need another round. We have a Series A, Series B, Series C, different rounds of funding. And typically, what happens is they will, instead of splitting the stock, they will actually just add on to. So if Series A was 1 million shares and they sold it at whatever valuation, and they need to do a Series B, now they need 10 million shares. So they took the million and they added 9 million to make a 10 million total pool. And so those Series A investors suffered from inflation. And going from 1 million to 10 million is obviously a 90% inflation rate. And that kind of thing happens all the time in the startup phases of companies, and even mature companies that are on the public markets are sometimes have to do that because they need to raise capital. So and managing all that and the expectations of investors for what the future is going to hold as far as that inflation goes is something that impacts the stock price. So and every stock certificate, if you actually get an old-fashioned stock certificate, there's actually a serial number on the certificate, and like this is number 1 or this is number 4,237, and so the certificate of stock is functionally equivalent to a token. And now that we have tokens and we can trade these back and forth, outside of any centralized exchange, and we can issue them at will and all that kind of stuff, completely opens the world for securitization. However, we still have a legal environment that we are operating in. So there's there's different kinds of how do you say people trying to push the system. So like there are those who will say just F it and I'll do what I want and governments be damned. And then there are others which is where the camp I land into is where, it's like, okay, I don't want to. There are areas where, I don't want to go to jail for just ignoring certain things. So, and it, depends on where you live and what rules there are. I live in the U.S. That puts me, uh, legitimately or illegitimately under the auspices of the U.S. government. So, I'm actually looking at bringing a token to market, and there'll be more about that later. But it's going to be security. It's going to be, formally registered, with the states and with the feds. It's going to have all the legal paperwork behind it, and it is going to be open to accredited investors. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. The accreditation rule is there, to keep people who don't have a lot of money from losing it all. And basically, the philosophy there is that you're better safe than sorry, kind of thing. So if you are, a person who makes, $40,000 a year, and you have $5,000 you want to invest, you want to do something, yeah, you could hit a home run, get in early with a startup, and then make millions of dollars. That is certainly possible. It's much more likely that not being involved in the financial markets and in other deals and not having that experience means that you're probably not able to identify what's a good deal and what is not, and then there's the outright scams. So the attack that the SEC has taken has been to protect first and worry about gains later. And having dealt with thousands of people in their financial situations, I think that is probably the right move. I mean, yes, it does impinge on their liberty, and so I don't like it from a philosophical move. But as far as a pragmatic approach, that I think does make a lot of sense. So so while I agree in principle with Taskmaster here, I have to not be so what's the word? Not be so gung ho about having people invest potentially their last dollar in something extremely speculative. So anyway, that's my take on it. And if you disagree, then hit me up on PalNet.